Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, we're going to talk about some of the top trending topics circulating around the internet. We're going to look at star tight end Darren Waller, talk about the drama going on around him. Clelin Ferrell, could he be the next Raiders player that gets cut? And then we're going to look at some Raiders draft targets, because if the draft were to start today, you'd have the number 2 overall pick. Now, I never want you guys to miss a moment. Subscribe to the number 1 most watched Raiders channel in the entire world, and the reason why we're that, we have that commitment to excellence. And I've been told that this show is fantastic. Thank you, Mark Davis. So seriously, and it's free. Hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and if you want to shout out on a future Raiders show, hit that notification bell. People who I know got the noties on. Here were the first 5 people to comment on the video that I put out on November 14th. Cody Wilson, you're a lord. Chili, Venom, what up, bro? Snortin' Norton 24/7, and then Matt R. Thank you very much for being a part of the Noti game here on the Raiders Report. It means a lot to me. Let's talk about the latest around Darren Waller and all the drama. Reports are this, that there is frustration growing amongst the team regarding Darren Waller. I believe that in terms of the front office, I think it's also the coaching staff. They're getting sick and tired of Waller not being out there on the field. Is he dealing with a hamstring injury? Yes. Has he been dealing with some sort of a hammy/SI joint problem that made him miss 6 games last season? Yes. And I'm not sitting up here saying that Waller isn't injured. I actually don't think that's the case. In fact, every single game that Waller misses this season, it costs him $75,000. Is that a lot of money to NFL players? No. But still, $75,000 is a lot of money. With that being said, though, here is the real problem. This is what somebody had to say about Waller. The sense is, Waller is not demonstrating the necessary fight to get back on the field, which has been a topic of discussion for months. You could almost say it's been going on over a year now that Waller, it almost looks like he doesn't even want to play. And I got some pretty interesting stuff that might prove that point. So this is what Derek Carr had to say after the Colts game. Is he talking about Darren Waller? I don't know. Nobody's ever going to know besides DC. But I do think that we saw how emotional Carr was, and by him saying it's hard, knowing what some guys are doing just to practice, what they're putting their bodies just to sleep at night, just so we can be there for each other. And I wish everybody in that room felt the same way about this place. And as a leader, that pisses me off if I'm being honest. Well, right now when all the reports are out there and there's one guy that's continuing not to show up out there on the games, then you got Derek Carr, who just flat out knows that his ability to lead this team to wins is absolutely impacted by Darren Waller, who, by the way, Raiders made him the highest paid tight end in the NFL this offseason. He's making on average $17 million per year. Can they get out of his contract? Yes, they absolutely can. But you know what? This Raiders organization did a lot for Darren Waller. They gave him a chance when nobody else did. Darren Waller was working behind a cash register, and somebody said, hey, why don't you come give us a tryout? Is he talented? Yes. Is he a special athlete? Correct. But 16 catches, 175 yards, and a touchdown. And the game that I saw against Tennessee, where Darren Waller literally dropped like 17 points for the Raiders that game. 2 drop touchdowns, a huge first down conversion that would have put the Raiders in scoring possession. Darren Waller looks like he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't look like he even wants to play football. Look at the body language on the sideline. That tells me everything I need to know. And you know what? It's frustrating because I came up on this show multiple times and said, pay that man. That guy deserves to do it. That guy deserves to be the highest paid tight end in the NFL. And now I take offense to that because the body language I see by Darren Waller reminds me a lot of Trent Brown. And y'all know how I feel about Trent Brown. So when I also think about this, I remember Darren Waller as 2 Wallers. This is how I remember him. I remember Waller before he hired Clutch Sports and after. Before Clutch Sports came into the equation, which, by the way, he does not have them anymore as an agent. He has Drew Rosenhaus. But before Clutch Sports, Darren Waller cared about one thing, getting out there on the field and proving himself. Since the day he hired Clutch Sports, I just feel like Darren Waller is just trying to grab money any way he can. Before, 32 games, missed 0 in 2 seasons. 197 catches, 2,341 yards, 12 touchdowns. Since hiring the agent, 16 games he's played in. He's missed 10, 71 catches, 840 yards, 3 touchdowns. You paid Waller to be the guy he was before he was trying to grab money. And now he's just somebody who sits on the sidelines and pouts. And even when he's out there on the game, he's not making that big of an impact. The Raiders took away Waller's captain status for the 2022 season. Y'all remember that? Darren Waller was a captain of the Raiders back in 2021. And then everybody was like, all right, maybe Waller's not going to be a captain. Could there be a reason? Maybe there's a lot more going inside of that locker room and people, players, right? Coaches, general managers, and then other team captains, they talk about who you want to be a team captain. I personally am starting to think that there's a reason why Waller's not a team captain. And has he totally given up on this team? You have to admit, I'm not saying Waller isn't hurt. I'm not saying that. But the Darren Waller that you saw back in 2019 and 2020, before he started looking for new agents to get that payday, does he deserve to get paid? Yes, absolutely. But that's been a different person, and I never thought that would happen with Darren Waller. Has Waller given up on this Raiders team? Let me know down in the comments section why for yes, or you can type your N for no. Now, today's news and rumor show is presented by our awesome sponsor, LinkedIn. I found Chat Sports through LinkedIn, and if there's anybody out there that's trying to help run a small business, LinkedIn Talent Solutions is going to help you post your job for free at linkedin.com/NFL Daily. Hiring is just the beginning. It's actually really difficult to find the right candidates, but luckily for you, simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/NFL Daily. That's linkedin.com/NFL Daily to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I mean, let's face it, y'all. We are looking at a Raiders team right now that personally I'm almost kind of wondering if they should use LinkedIn, because the guy that they hired for a head coach is an absolute fraud. And if you're a small business, not a Raiders organization, and you hire somebody like that, it's not going to work out. I am a big believer in LinkedIn because Chat Sports just 2 years ago, we were 4 dudes. And you have seen how much this company has expanded, and the fact that I get to come into work every single day, work with awesome dudes like Jeremy Chugs, get to sit down and talk to you, proves me this. LinkedIn will make you guys find the right people that you need to hire. Let's go to another name here who we're talking about. It's Clelin Ferrell, and could Ferrell end up getting cut? I'm actually going to give this one 2 just win babies, and hear me out. Has there been any story in terms of Ferrell getting cut? No. Has there been a report? No. But sometimes you just got to read between the lines because, let's face it, I don't believe anything that comes out of Josh McDaniels' mouth. I don't believe anything that comes out of Dave Ziegler's mouth. I don't believe anything that comes out of Mark Davis's mouth. If it comes from a Raiders beat reporter, I don't believe it. Why? Because they are simply listening to those 3 people right there. So the Raiders, they cut Jonathan Abram last week. Ferrell was a healthy scratch against Indianapolis. When McDaniels was asked in his postgame, why didn't those 3 players play? He's like, we're going to keep that internal. The Raiders have already declined his 5th-year option. You know that Ferrell is not a McDaniels guy whatsoever. Has Clee done an okay job for what Ferrell is? Yeah, I guess. He's never going to be what you were hoping when you took him number 4 overall. But when I really sit down and think of all the moves that this Raiders team has made this season, I wouldn't be surprised. You brought in Jerry Tillery. You have Kyle Petco now. And if you have no use for Ferrell, the Raiders showed you early in the offseason they cut Alex Leatherwood. Why? Because they're just like, we're not going to use him, so let's get rid of him. And right now, the Raiders' defensive tackle depth chart is Andrew Billings, Bilal Nichols. You could probably throw Clelin Ferrell on this list because he's been playing more of defensive tackle / edge rusher than anything. And more proof that they have no idea what to do with him. A few weeks ago, they were lining him out at cornerback to try to slow down a tight end. Clelin Ferrell should absolutely be put on watch. So here's my question. I'm not saying Ferrell's going to get cut today. I'm not saying he's going to get cut tomorrow. But do you honestly think that Clelin Ferrell is going to finish this season with the Las Vegas Raiders? Type F if you do think he's going to finish it. And if you don't, I do want you to type NF. Shout out to him, one of my favorite music artists out there. If anybody loves NF or you love some other music, let me know down in the comments. But seriously, Clelin Ferrell, will he finish the season with the Raiders? F for finish, NF for he won't finish. Here are some more cut candidates. And I thought about doing a video around this topic before of other players that I believe are on the hot seat that could get cut at any moment. John Simpson. Why? Not a McDaniels guy. Clelin Ferrell. Kendall Vickers. Now you add an extra defensive tackle. And I like Malcolm Koonce. Hell, I wish he'd get more opportunities. But at the end of the day, if you're not a McDaniels guy, if you're not a Ziegler guy, they probably don't want you, man. So coming up next here on the Raiders Report, let's look at some Raiders draft targets because I've been getting filled with questions, but that just sounds downright weird. I've been getting asked. How about that? I've been getting asked on social media. And speaking of social media, you guys can always hit me up on Twitter and on Instagram at Mitchell Renz 365. And if you follow me on Twitter and IG, you probably already know how I would handle the number 2 overall pick. I also put out even more videos over on Locals, so Raidersport.locals.com is an easier way to get more exclusive content from me here on the Raiders Report. So before we get into those draft targets, this week, I want to give a shout out to our Week 10 MVP, and I'm going to start doing this every week. If you watch our show during our watch parties, because the Raiders are just bad now, I still want to be able to party. I want to be able to hang out like it's an Oakland tailgate, and I'm going to show the MVP love. So we kind of had a little bit of a split MVP. Tri Van sent in the largest super chat during our Week 10 game against Indianapolis, and he dedicated it to Hellcat Q to say thank you for his service in the armed forces. And we actually have some really awesome pictures. I'm going to move out of the way here of Hellcat Q in battle, standing next to George W. Bush. I don't care who you are. If you meet a president, that's pretty freaking sick to me. This one's my favorite, though. Him with his family. It doesn't get any better than that. Raider Nation is all about family. So Hellcat Q, Tri-Van, I appreciate you. If you guys haven't already, please say thank you to Hellcat for his participation on the Raiders Report, but most importantly, for his service to this country. Because if it wasn't for Hellcat, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So, Hellcat, much love to you, bro. Let's now talk about the NFL Draft. And if the season were to end today, the Las Vegas Raiders would have the number 2 overall pick, which is just simply freaking mind-blowing to me. But guess what? It's the world we live in, and that's the world that we got to talk about right now. So what you guys are going to see is this. If I'm sitting in that war room with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, first thing I do is I punch both of them directly in the gonads, and then I tell them this. These are the only 3 players that need to be on our big board right now. First guy is this. It's Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama. Has to be on your big board. Last season, Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy Award, threw for 4,872 yards, 47 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Is he undersized? Yes, absolutely. But the thing I love about Bryce Young, that dude is as cool as a cucumber, cool as the other side of the pillow. Shout out to Stuart Scott, R.I.P. But also this. This is the first year that I've ever seen an Alabama team not have the amount of talent that they do at the wide receiver position. Has Bama struggled? Yeah, they have. 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. They have 2 losses, which is probably the biggest thing. The fact, though, that he's with a winning program, the fact that he's been a winner, and because he has that mentality that I love, that I just don't think that you can ever shake this guy, I'll also point the finger and say, I think the biggest reason for Alabama's struggles on offense is butthole chin Bill O'Brien. Let's go to the next name here. It's C.J. Stroud, quarterback from Ohio State. These are not ranked in any particular order. I will tell you who I would draft at number 2 here in just a second. Last season for the Buckeyes, 4,435 yards, 44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. If you're looking for a quarterback that has better build, C.J. Stroud has better build, and I'll say that he might even have higher upside than Bryce Young. However, I don't know if I can trust an Ohio State quarterback. Until I see one of these guys pan out, I just believe that system, the amount of talent that they have, it's great. 34 touchdowns this season, 4 interceptions, 2,750 yards. I am going to be watching C.J. Stroud very, very closely over the next few games because I want to see how he does in big-time moments. You got a big-time game coming up against Michigan. We'll see who wins that game if you're in the BCS National Championship or not. Let's go to now the final name here. It's Will Anderson Jr. He's the edge rusher. In 2021, this man was a wrecking ball. 101 tackles, 17.5 sacks, 0 forced fumbles. But in his 3 years at Alabama, as a freshman, instant impact. And if you can get on the field and be a highlighted player like Anderson has been for 3 years on that team that's had multiple first-round picks, you need to watch. You flat out need to watch. 17.5 sacks, 31 tackles for loss last season. Now this season he's taken a little bit of a step back. But you know what teams are doing? They're just paying a lot more closer attention to him. 42 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. So here's my question. If I'm telling all y'all, to me, there's 3 players that you're picking from. It's either Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., or C.J. Stroud. But this show's not about me. It's about giving you guys a voice. So please sound off in the comments. What would you do? Number 2 picks on the board. Let's just say all 3 of these guys are up there. Are you taking Bryce Young, type BY? Will Anderson, WA? CJ Stroud, CS? If it's somebody else, type O. Now, for me, this is the route I would go. I don't trust Josh McDaniels to be able to work with a quarterback. So personally, I would take Will Anderson at number 2. He is the most sure thing as a prospect to me that you can get out of all of those players out there. You put Will Anderson next to Max Crosby, that's supposed to be the dynamic pass rush duo that you were hoping for when you went out and got Chandler Waldo Jones. The other reason why I would do that is because then you have pick number 33. There's other solid quarterbacks that you could potentially get at 33 that maybe you could have learn behind somebody like a Tom Brady. You have them learn behind Jimmy Garoppolo. Is the scenario where you actually keep Derek Carr and have one of those young quarterbacks learn behind DC? Or, because the amount of holes that you have on this roster, you're not picking number 2 just because the quarterback's bad. Sorry to break it to you. You trade back. If you're at number 2, there's going to be a team out there that gives you a boatload of picks because it's Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. Those are the top 2 quarterbacks. And realistically, that's probably the route I would go. If somebody's willing to give me multiple high first-round picks for the chance to get C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young with the amount of holes that this team has, I probably just end up trading back because unless you're a quarterback away, right, most teams that are picking that high aren't a quarterback away. For that reason, I'm either taking Will Anderson or I'm just going to end up trading back from the number 2 overall pick.